Imagine you were 18, good-looking, and in desperate need for money. To save your family from homelessness, what would you be willing to do? Well, 2 years ago, my mom got very sick and couldn't leave her bed anymore. That's why she lost her job, and we couldn't afford rent anymore. I knew I had 1 week left to make some money, or all 3 of us, including my 4-year-old sister, would be kicked out of the house and would have to beg on the streets. And that's super dangerous here in El Salvador, because there are tons of gangs roaming in the streets. They can't wait to find helpless families like ours to exploit them in all kinds of cruel ways. But finding a job that paid enough for rent and Mom's medical bills wasn't going to happen here in this third world country I'm living in. I was desperate and willing to do anything, maybe even, you know what. But then I had a better idea. I sent a friend request on Facebook to a guy called Alberto. Everyone in school knew him because his rich dad was both a successful businessman and an influential politician. We started chatting and I asked him out on a date. Of course, he agreed. I mean, he was only 15 and I was 18. It was so awkward meeting him because I was much taller than him. But I knew what I had to do, so I acted like I had a huge crush on him, and he seemed to enjoy it a lot. I said, "Any plans for tonight? Plans for tonight?" "Not yet, but you can come by my home tonight and watch a movie with me." Well, that's what we did. And while we were sitting on a couch, I went close to him, gave him a kiss, and said, "If you want to date me, I expect you to treat me well. I want a guy that spends his money on me, because I'm a high-maintenance girl." Alberto responded, "Sure, no problem." And that's how our relationship started. However, he could only give me $1,000 a month. It wasn't even enough for my mom's medication. So at night, while Alberto was asleep, I would search his house for valuables that I could sell. I normally stole stuff from his dad's room. I figured no one would notice. But even though I was making enough money now to take care of my family, my life at school became hell. Dating a guy 3 years younger than me was extremely embarrassing. He always held my hand publicly and made me make out with him in front of others. Everyone called me a gold digger, and I guess they were right. But no one knew that I was doing it for my family. Even my former best friends turned their backs on me. Meanwhile, Alberto was a huge jerk. He had that rich kid arrogance, and to him I was nothing but a toy. On weekends, he often took me shopping to buy me the dresses he liked. Then I had to wear them to school so he could show me off to his friends. He also asked me things like, "Why are you so attracted to me?" And I would answer, "Because you are so handsome, strong, and attractive." Meanwhile, all his 15-year-old friends were listening and giggling. Well, if things couldn't get worse, Alberto's dad wanted to talk to me. He brought me into his room and said, "I know you've been stealing from me." Then he went to the door and locked it. Now I couldn't escape. I was petrified and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do it, but I needed the money for my mom's medication." "I don't care about your mother. You're gonna pay me back." "But how?" "You better find a way, my sweetheart." There was this awkward silence, and the way he looked at me made me feel uncomfortable. He said, "You are an adult, so you can get a job to pay off your debt. But there's another way. You see, my wife and I have been arguing a lot recently. So I'm going to make you an offer. If you become my second girlfriend, I'm going to take care of you and your financial worries." Eduardo was quite good looking, so I didn't think twice and said, "Fine! How are we going to do it?" I thought that this was the solution to all my problems. I broke up with Alberto the same day and started meeting his dad, Eduardo, a few times per week. He normally pretended to go on business trips so his wife wouldn't get suspicious. Of course, I felt bad for his wife. Sometimes she called Eduardo while he laid next to me in bed, and he would tell her how exhausting his work was, even though he was actually cheating on her. But I guess she didn't believe him, because one day, his wife knocked on our hotel door. I had no clue and opened it. When she saw me, she started crying and screaming. She ran towards Eduardo and started punching him. He said, "It's no big deal, I don't love her. She's only a mistress." "But she was dating our son, and now you are dating her? You disgusting pig! How can you do this to me?" You probably think that he stopped seeing me after his wife found out about us, but he didn't. We kept seeing each other just as before. He didn't seem to care how much he was hurting his wife. She even sent me letters each week, begging me to stop seeing her husband. I felt incredibly guilty, but I didn't have much of a choice. And after a few months of dating, Eduardo told me he was willing to divorce his wife if I wanted to take her place. I gotta be honest, I was disgusted by him. How could someone betray his wife of 20 years so badly? I declined the offer. In fact, I wanted to run away from him as far as I could, but I needed his financial support. Well, at least until my mom died. Suddenly there were no more medical bills, and it was such a relief. I left Eduardo and took a job as a cashier to take care of my little sister. But it wasn't the life I had dreamed of. Working 10 hours a day and only making $300 per month while having to take care of a little kid on the side was too much for me to handle. So I went back to Eduardo and started dating him again. This time it was more serious though. He rented me and my sister a nice apartment to live in and started spending half of his time with us. We even talked about me getting pregnant. At first I was hesitant, but he promised to spend half of his money on our second family if I should carry his baby. He also said his son Alberto didn't have the intelligence to manage his family's money once he was gone, so he was looking for another son. To be honest, it all sounded too good to be true. He was probably smearing honey around my mouth, but what other choice did I have? None, so I finally agreed. I know what most of you are thinking of me. I'm a terrible person for destroying another family, but most of you have never lived in absolute poverty while having to take care of a small kid. So please don't judge me too hard. In the end, I never wanted this life. I wish I could meet my dream guy like those girls in Disney movies, but this is real life, not a fairy tale. By the way, I recently gave birth to our baby. It's a boy, and Eduardo seems to love him a lot. He spends 5 days of the week with us, which means he had almost completely given up on his old family. So, maybe understandably, his wife wasn't happy about it. She sent some crook to my apartment to assassinate me. Luckily, the guy struggled to get through the door, and I used my chance to jump to the neighboring balcony to escape. It was so scary, though, and when I told Eduardo about what happened, he flew into a rage. And the same night he visited his old family and handled things his way. I don't really want to talk about it, because if he is willing to hurt them, he is willing to hurt us too. But at least I have Eduardo all for myself now. I mean, he can be a huge jerk and constantly threatens to leave me if I don't do exactly what he likes. He, for example, asks me to massage him all the time like I'm his maid. And then out of nowhere, he gets annoyed at me and calls me an uneducated bimbo. He says he's more attracted to independent women who have their own career and don't need his money. But at the same time, he doesn't want me to go to college or get a job. I'm sure he'll leave me for a younger girl someday. But until then, I think it's worth it. Maybe life is just complicated and I wasn't just a teen mom, but I was also living in a sewer and had to fight off rats that were trying to eat me. But let's back off a bit, and let me tell you the full story of how I ended up living in Mexico City's sewer system, even though I was only 15. I grew up middle class in Mexico City, and my life was rather boring until I had my first fashion photo shoot. There was this well-dressed guy who came up to me telling me I was cute. He even asked me out to a bar, but I told him I was only 15 and my dad would never allow me to go out at night because of all the gangs and drug cartels in our country. He ended up giving me his number anyway and walked off again. Then my manager came over saying, "Stay away from that guy. His dad is a high-ranking cartel member and he only comes to these fashion shoots to pick up pretty girls." Had I been smart, I would have listened to his advice, but I just couldn't get the guy out of my head. The fact that his dad was in a cartel only made him more exciting. I imagined us hiding from the police in expensive mansions and building our own drug cartel together. Oh, I loved fantasizing about being the wife of a drug cartel boss. So I met up with the guy. His name was Armando. I dated him for months, and it was just as I had imagined it. He drove me through the city in sports cars, and I knew I had to fear no one when I was next to him, not even the police. Because the police is super corrupt in Mexico. For example, one time a drunk guy at a party made fun of my boyfriend Armando. But when his friends told him whose son Armando was, the guy jumped on his knees and begged him for mercy, crying and embarrassing himself. And I guess it worked, because Armando let him go again. That's why he had so much confidence. No one could touch him. But one day he picked me up at my home and my dad asked him who he was. Armando responded, "I'm your daughter's boyfriend." "Ha, not in a million years. I can tell what kind of guy you are." That's when Dad took me by my arm and dragged me back into the house. I saw Armando coming at my dad from behind, but I waved him off because I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I was in love, though, so the next day after school, I ran away and started living with Armando. He was living in a big apartment and spent so much money on me that I was convinced he was serious about us. But one night, we and his friends went to a bar, and I made a mistake. I got a bit drunk and told Armando that one of his friends looked super cute. He freaked out and told me that I should then go date that guy instead of him. I immediately apologized and said I'd only been joking. But afterward, it was never the same again between us. He came home less and less often and just didn't seem to love me anymore. I was so petrified of losing him that I made him impregnate me. I did it by lying to him and saying I was on the pill. I thought if we had a child, he'd fall back in love with me. I said, I know things have been difficult between us lately, but look what I just found out. I showed him the pregnancy test, hoping he'd be happy about it, but he looked dead in the eyes. Aren't you happy? This wasn't part of my plans. His reaction made me so nervous. Had he already been planning on leaving me? We went to bed, but I couldn't fall asleep. I was too worried. Then in the middle of the night, he stood up, took his phone, and left the room. I secretly followed him to the balcony and heard him say, I need you to get rid of her. It will be an easy job. I'll just bring her to your home tomorrow morning. I ran back to the bedroom, petrified. I had to get out of here. So I stood up early, around 5 a.m., trying to escape. But Armando somehow noticed it and said, Where are you going? Oh, just to the bathroom. I think the baby woke me up. Okay, and by the way, I'll later visit a friend. You should come with us. Oh, that sounds fantastic, but, it's my aunt's birthday today. That's fine, no problem. We'll visit your aunt first, and afterward go to my friend. What the frick? This psycho really wanted me dead. I went to the bathroom and turned on the shower. I wanted to make Armando believe I was showering so I had enough time to escape. Then I left the bathroom and went to the front door. But right when I pushed on the handle, I heard Armando say, Where are you going? What, me? Oh, I'm just going outside to get some exercise. Without shoes? And why did you leave the shower on? I had no excuses left and just ran outside to the elevator. Armando didn't follow me. I guess he was scared I'd scream and get the neighbors' attention. Instead, he just stared in my eyes while I waited for the elevator. It was so scary. Afterward, I immediately went back to my dad's house. I was crying when he opened the door. I felt so bad for running away, but he immediately took me in his arms, and I knew he still loved me. I told him that Armando's dad was a high-ranking member of a cartel, and that he wanted me dead now because I was carrying his baby. My dad responded, Don't worry, I know a place where you can hide. He walked me to the street in front of our house, opened a manhole cover and said, Go in there before someone sees you. Quick, I'll bring you food later. I climbed to the bottom and the smell was so bad I started crying. It was wet, stinky, and dirty. I waited for 12 hours until my dad finally came down to bring me food. What took you so long? I hate this place. You don't understand. Your lovely boyfriend Armando paid me a visit today. He and his buddies searched the whole house for you. It's best if you stay down here for a few months until things cool down. A few months? Are you nuts? There isn't even a toilet down here. That's why I brought you diapers. My dad also brought me water canisters, food, a camping mat, and a walkie-talkie. It wasn't the life of my dreams, but at least I was safe. And it also gave me time to reflect on all the dumb decisions I'd made. Later that day, I called my dad, apologized for running away, and thanked him for letting me come back. He only responded, Don't worry, sweetie. I'll always be there for you. Then I fell asleep. But after a few hours, I felt a tickling on my toe. Ah! A freaking rat! And it wanted to eat my foot. That was my life until 3 weeks later when my dad organized me a way to escape Mexico. I don't want to say where I live now because I'm still scared that Armando might find me someday. But recently I found work as a primary school teacher while raising my daughter. It's not an easy life, and I wish I had listened to my dad when he warned me about Armando. But I can't change the past.